Good morning to you. Mark Sudduth, HurricaneTrack here. Now Friday, the 5th of July, 2024. Everybody have all their fingers, or at least what you started with yesterday. 2 eyes, hopefully, and a good set of ears. I hope so, because we need to talk about Hurricane Beryl here, currently impacting our friends down in the Yucatan. But then it does look more likely than not that Beryl will be Texas-bound with significant impacts, an increase in wind, coastal problems with storm surge, onshore flow, and that could impact a pretty good portion of the northwest Gulf of Mexico. The potential for very heavy rain. Yes, it could be for areas that need it, but it could be too much all at once. There's a lot to go over here as we kind of end the week but start the week over after the holidays. Does that make sense? I hope so. Let's get started. Show you what's happening first. National Hurricane Center homepage. There's Beryl. At least the other system, 96L, has been dropped. We were very lucky with that situation that it did not go on to develop. So let's just focus on Beryl here. Currently over the Yucatan, winds are 100 miles per hour. And yes, there's a cricket in the office. It's not your house, so don't look for it. If you hear that cricket, it's here. This dashboard, very important to understand where Beryl is and what it's supposed to be doing over the next several days. Here are some of the messages, though, coming out already. Some of the graphics and related messages for rainfall potential in Texas. And this is just sort of the beginning, and we're going to have to see how this plays out over time. But already seeing the potential for some flooding across a pretty big area now at a slight risk. You know, we look at that for severe weather, but this is also very important for flooding, and this does now include the greater Houston area, and we know what can happen up there. But also, we have the hill country through here that needs to be taken into consideration as well. All through this region, you need it. It could be a lot. We have a lot to watch here with Beryl over the coming days. But right now, it is over the Yucatan, and it has made landfall here well to the southwest of Cancun and Playa del Carmen, but impacts there with onshore flow coming in and the heavy bands of showers and thunderstorms and very high wind through this area certainly was felt. Now a big rainmaker, kind of windy, I'm sure, gusty in some spots, those downdrafts coming through. It'll move off. The hurricane will move off on the northwest part of the Yucatan Peninsula. Forecast to drop to a tropical storm. Most of the terrain through here is fairly flat, so we'll have to see what impacts that frictional effect has on sort of dragging the bottom away from Beryl and sort of helping to decouple it a little bit. But once back out in the Gulf of Mexico, conditions should be favorable, and it should strengthen again from a tropical storm. Don't let this fool you. Please do not let this get you where you're like, come on, Mark, you're overdoing it. It's just a tropical storm and a Category 1. People in Texas hopefully no longer say it's just a storm or it's just a Category 1 after what you went through almost 7 years ago now with Harvey. These systems are notorious for dropping tremendous amounts of rain, and sometimes that can be the #1 impact for an area. You know, nevertheless, and not even, you know, the wind speed and the storm surge stuff notwithstanding, you're always going to have very heavy rain. And whether you're in a big urban area, 4 million plus like the greater Houston area, or even Corpus Christi or inland, San Antonio, the I-35 corridor, as we move our view of the map out, look at what happens with this system, taking aim there, basically in the heart of the hill country there. Austin, a lot of people live there, and this is going to bring a lot of rain, and rain is a significant impact. Seriously. So you need to take this seriously. Don't worry about that number. It's slightly important because it wouldn't be there otherwise, but it doesn't tell the whole story. Texas is in line to receive some significant impacts, and it's going to be from a number of different aspects of this hurricane currently. Going to weaken down to a tropical storm, and I bet a lot of people start to write it off at that point, and that's where the danger lies. You have to appreciate this for the capability of what it can do in totality. Looking at the big picture of everything today, let's use yellow here to highlight what's what. Clearly, there's Beryl, and clearly not looking nearly as organized as it was, and that is a good thing. We're going to have enough problems with it as it is, already having enough problems as this goes across the Yucatan. We don't need it ramping up anymore, and it certainly is a good thing that it didn't come in stronger. But that's just wind. When you talk about all the other impacts, those impacts are certainly occurring across that area. And you notice too, in the East Pac, Aletta, very short-lived, another sign that we're going to have a very busy Atlantic season. When the East Pacific is down, the Atlantic is typically up. And quite an unfavorable pattern out here now. So after Beryl clears the pattern, and that's several days away, we should have a break going through the mid part of July, sort of the climatological summertime version of the winter thaw. You know how it gets really cold and then you have sort of that thaw, January thaw they call it, I guess. Anyway, we'll have sort of the summer version of that in hurricane season with a little bit of a lull coming up for a couple of weeks after Beryl. But we got to deal with Beryl for sure. Here's a close-up of it. Very deep thunderstorms. We call that deep. They are deep into the atmosphere on that northwest side. And even these grays in here that we're seeing, those are very heavy rain showers, squally conditions, very windy under there. Don't have good visible satellite imagery just yet because Mark is up pretty early today, and the satellite imagery kind of lags just enough that we don't have any good high-res stuff to show you just yet. So there's not really a discernible eye, but it's probably fairly visible on radar, and certainly it's suffering the hurricane as it goes across the Yucatan. You have the warm water taken away from it, the overall environment not quite as ideal, but that doesn't matter for later. What it looks like now has very little bearing on what's going to happen later on. So let's start taking a look at all of that in the track guidance first. So I'll use yellow here. Let's use yellow to highlight our envelope here, so to speak. And everything's pretty tightly clustered all the way up to Texas and extreme northeast Mexico here. And that's almost how you can draw the cone of uncertainty, or the forecast cone. Clearly, in the longer time range, you have much more divergence in the models, where they spread out and it's less reliable, because this is where it begins to slow down more. I know it starts to curve quickly here in the model, indicating it moves up, faster. But overall, the guidance does suggest south to south central Texas, and we might not be done with these north shifts yet. And as you can clearly see, I'll draw it just in case you can't, that's the Rio Grande there. That is the border between Texas and Mexico. And you got Brownsville down here just inland, South Padre Island, Boca Chica, and then north, not a lot there in Kennedy County, but once you get north of there towards Corpus and Port Mansfield and everything else, all the way up to Matagorda Bay, and then finally Surfside Beach down here, and Sargent and all that, and then Houston, Galveston area. And you say, well, Mark, why are you talking about us? It's way down here. As it turns, that onshore flow will come in, and I think we could see some serious coastal flooding issues all across this area just because of the shape of the coastline. So there's a lot to watch here for over the coming days. So most of the track guidance is honing in on a landfall in Texas. What about the intensity? So I thought I'd show you the HWRF. It's done a pretty darn good job this time around. So that's why I'm cherry picking this. It has handled Beryl very well so far overall. It's handled the rapid intensification for the most part, and it's got a good initialization. This is what it would look like now in that model. And so I'm going to show you the HWRF. It is the Hurricane Weather Research Forecast model, and it is specifically designed for hurricanes. That's why hurricane is in the front of that acronym, as it were, the HWRF. So where are we looking at? What is all this? Well, we have the Yucatan, and let's use black to outline stuff. Nope, because the color's already there. We'll use red. That's fine. So there's the Yucatan right there. And we are peering down through the model at about 10 meters in the atmosphere. And the 10-meter wind, so about 33 feet or so. So, roughly a two-story building or shorter. And pine trees, that kind of thing. Light poles. Stuff that's about 30 to 35 feet tall. That's 10 meters. And we're looking at the wind speed at that 10-meter mark in knots, and the mean sea level pressure in millibars. Remember, science is generally, if not exclusively, all metric. So let's move this out over time. Hurricane goes across the Yucatan, according to the HWRF, emerges off the northwest coast there, not far from Merida in Mexico, by this evening. So it doesn't spend a lot of time over land. It gets back out over the water, and quickly starts to reorganize. Luckily, the model doesn't show rapid strengthening. Hopefully that does not occur. But as we say often here at HurricaneTrack, hope by itself is not a planning method. That's not a planning tool. You don't hope these things away. So it does quickly get back organized again. This is tomorrow evening into Sunday, and some of those 10-meter winds now getting back up above hurricane force. Got a well-developed core. Pressure's dropping down to 971. We are now Sunday morning, early on. There's the coast of Texas and northeast Mexico right through here. Matamoros down here. Boca Chica sitting in here. Port Isabel, South Padre Island. And then further up the coast, you know your geography, hopefully. And again, a lot of this area through here, for the most part, generally less populated. So we'll see how this ends up, right? So the HWRF brings it in farther to the north, considerably so, than does the official forecast track. So this hopefully helps you to understand that the hurricane might be that little L in the center where it's plotted on a map. For example, here it is on our interactive map. There's that one there. That's the center. That little one and whatnot, that's this. Everything else, all this yellow, green, and pinks and all that, that's the wind field. That's the rest of the hurricane, right? So please be sure you understand that. And that tells us nothing about what could be happening over here along the shore with onshore flow and storm surge. Very efficient to just pile that water up in these bays, along these barrier islands. And that could extend even up here to southwest Louisiana and into the Houston, Galveston area, High Island, Bolivar Peninsula, you name it, Galveston, all the way down Jamaica Beach, Bermuda Beach, like I said, Sargent, Surfside Beach. I mean, yeah, this could be a big problem. So landfall on the HWRF anyway happens very early Monday morning, and it gets down to 962 with a solid core looking to it. This doesn't look all disheveled, and it moves inland from there. We can just scroll here and show you. We lose the wind field, except, hey, look, there are potentially some tropical storm force winds coming in from the south-southwest here in Galveston Bay. And this is way out Monday night into early Tuesday morning, the overnight hours. And while the pressure is up to 990, this doesn't tell us anything about all the rainfall that could be occurring underneath. So let's back it out and look at that part of the model. We'll go to the radar and the mean sea level pressure. This is a simulated radar. That really tells the story. Look at that. That's a lot of heavy rain, and there could be some embedded supercells in here. Some of that does go across the greater Houston area. Look at that line there. Is this what's going to exactly happen? Of course not. It's a model simulation early on, but we're only talking 90 hours out. You know, this isn't 10 days and it's model fantasy land. And I got to remind you again, the HWRF has done fairly well overall at handling this system. So we got to watch this extremely closely for our friends down here in northeast Mexico, but certainly a good chunk of the Texas coast there. Absolutely. And one of my big concerns is this right here. Where the hurricane is located now and for the next almost day or so, not favorable at all. It's over land. You're going to have cooler sea surface temperatures here. These are your actual temperatures of the ocean surface. And here's what I want you to pay attention to. Comes across, and let's just say that it does make landfall somewhere in this area right here. That's somewhere in the zone of where it ends up. It comes out of cooler sea surface temperatures. By the way, this happens through here because of that southerly wind that just typically comes across. This is called upwelling. You're blowing the water away from the northern Yucatan, so you upwell cooler water from below to replace it. And a lot of this through here is from all the activity we have already had this hurricane season. Anyway, Beryl forecast to come across, like I said, let's say it makes landfall somewhere in here. It is going to move through an increasingly warm water temperature profile up here of 30 Celsius or higher. That is very, very warm. We're talking mid almost to upper 80s, moving out of decent water temperatures, 28, 29 Celsius, low 80s or so, to 30 Celsius, which I think is 85 or 86 degrees Fahrenheit. So no shortage of very warm water as it approaches the coast there and those inflow bands reaching all the way up here to where it's very warm, like ridiculous, almost like bath water. That's a concern of mine because there's going to be plenty of fuel, and we know what can happen. And just to prove the point even more, these water temperatures here close to the coast running at least 2 degrees warmer than average Celsius, so 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit. Hey, there's that upwelling that you can see on the Yucatan there, the north side, again from that strong southerly flow. So there's a lot here to suggest that Beryl could be more intense wind and surge wise for those two impacts than I think any of us are comfortable about. And then of course the rain impact is going to be significant pretty much almost no matter what. All right, so we are going to cover this. The decision has been made. I will be working with one of my colleagues from Colorado. His name is Matt. We are actually crowd-funded and crowd-supported through a number of ways. It's not just the money we get, because it does take funding, right? This isn't just free. Everything I do costs a tremendous amount of money. So we actually have people that help. They come out, they donate their time, their energy, their effort, sometimes their own personal vehicle. And so we are community-supported like a co-op. I'm just the face of it, take it or leave it. And so, yes, that's what we're going to do. We're going to cover this hurricane in Texas starting, well, today. We're going to fly out this evening. Matt and I will meet in Houston, and then we will head south from there tomorrow. Have no idea of exactly where we're going to end up. Because I'm flying and he is flying, we cannot take the full suite of all of our powerful equipment that we have. But we will bring several of our live cams, a couple of pressure sensors. We won't have any wind data from a reliable instrument. We do have our handheld anemometer from Kestrel. That's more for just spot measurements. But we will be able to show you these impacts. We're going to stream live on YouTube starting tomorrow on a public-facing feed where you will see our vehicle cam and you can hear and see everything we do. And then we'll start setting these cameras up. I think we're going to have like 4 or 5 of them. We have 20 total, but I can't bring all of them on an airplane. It just doesn't work that way. So yeah, we'll start setting all that up tomorrow through Sunday, and just like you, we will be watching to see where that narrow area, of where we need to be starts to line up. So we'll be live on YouTube, always going to be free. That's one of the most important things we do, is to have much of what we do as much as possible at zero cost to you. However, if you are in the position or you want more information and to have the inside track on everything, you can become a part of that community that I mentioned, and we do it. A lot of people know of this now, this new entity that we've had for several years, Patreon, crowdfunding. Not just the fund side, of course, the money, but everything else, the interaction with people through our Discord server, this wonderful community that we've got, and you can join up and you get access to all that other stuff as well for your investment. But we also want you to become part of what we do. Have a say-so, have an idea, have a suggestion. You might even be able to help when we're in your area. That's what makes this so wonderful. And it's more than just a subscription service or anything like that. That's not what it is. It's like public radio. And I know youngsters are like, what's public radio? But, it's member-supported. And people in the gaming world know all about this now, crowdfunding and supporting your creators in the gaming world or any other creative endeavor, filmmaking, you name it. And even people that are doing weather have come a long way because of crowdfunding, and we are very much a part of that. But yes, we will be on YouTube starting tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Central Time. We're going live. I think 8 a.m. We'll see. Maybe a little later, depending on what the track and whatnot is. But yeah, we will be live tomorrow. Look, I can guarantee you this. At least by noon Central Time, we'll be getting going. Hey, I got to do one of these updates for you tomorrow. So it's not like I'm just going to be sleeping in and lounging around. It takes a little bit of effort to put these together for you. But we will be live after that. All right. Well, let me shut my mouth and get this online for you. As always, we appreciate you tuning in. The entire HurricaneTrack community, we appreciate you. Have a great rest of your Friday. I'm Mark Sudduth. I'll see you again tomorrow from Texas.